reacting to the Hello Kitty murder in complete detail. I have no idea what this is. It looks interesting. Make sure you're in the dark. Make sure you're nice and comfortable. I've never heard of the Hello Kitty cases, but we'll find out what it is about. Wait, it's the Hello Kitty murder.
In one of the most infamous crimes to ever come out of Hong Kong, a woman is held captive, severely mistreated, and eventually murdered. However, what made this case so infamous is how they treated her after the fact. She was abandoned in her childhood, forcing her to grow up in an orphanage. However, this would only be until she reached the age of 15, as that orphanage had an age limit in place. Given that she was never adopted and had no place to live, she soon became homeless. Soon after that, she became addicted to drugs. Fan ended up having to resort to prostitution, working at a brothel to get by and even feed herself. When Fan Lingyi was in her early 20s, she was able to get a job as a dancer at the Empress Karaoke nightclub. She eventually fell for one of her clients, who was unfortunately another drug addict who only ended up enabling her. Despite this, they got married in 1996. Her husband, however, soon began mistreating her.
See, bro?
Still, though, she stayed with the man, and they actually had 2 sons together over the next couple of years. Their fighting only worsened, though. The neighbors would often wake up to not only the sounds of the children screaming, but the sounds of the couple themselves screaming as well, as they argued all throughout the night. By early 1997, Fan had already started working as a prostitute again out at a brothel called the Romance Villa in Kowloon. After working there for a while, she ended up meeting a 34-year-old man named Chan Man Lok. Chan was said to have been a wealthy socialite well known throughout the area. Fan was immediately drawn to him as she was a prostitute who was addicted to drugs, and he was a drug dealer that also worked as a pimp.
Oh my gosh,
He would often pay her
bro.
for long, all-night sessions where they would binge crystal meth, or ice, which he supplied.
What?
It wasn't too long before Fan was integrated into Chan's inner circle. She was there along with several of his little underlings, his henchmen, if you want to call them that. Chan Man Lok was a member of the Triads, a large Chinese organized crime syndicate. He wasn't someone to be messed with. Hell, he wasn't even someone you should associate with for your own safety. However, Fan got too comfortable around him regardless. One night, during one of their binges, she stole his wallet, gaining the equivalent of about $4,000.
Holy
that would
moly.
prove to be the biggest mistake of her life. Chan found out about this and was furious. She agreed to pay him back with $4,000 that she was to earn from her work. He wasn't happy with this, though, and demanded $10,000 of interest.
Wow.
Fan stated that she would need a good amount of time to pay that interest off fully. Chan Man Lok was furious about his stolen money. It wasn't even about the money, it was the fact that Fan even had the audacity to steal from him in the first place. In March of 1999, he got 2 of his men to kidnap Fan and take—
Yo! Look how hideous these guys are!
Ugh. Brother, ugh. What's that?
That looks like a monster. Imagine waking up, looking down at the bottom of your bed, and you see this face looking up at you, bro. I would
her back to his
crap
apartment
myself.
on Granville Road. It was a massive apartment consisting of 5 bedrooms and was all decked out in Hello Kitty merch for some reason. Hello Kitty was on the curtains, on the bed sheets, adorning the walls, and there were even plushies all over the place. Chan planned to pimp Fan out and force her to work non-stop until her debt to him was fully paid off. But he was never satisfied with any amount of money she would earn. He kept increasing the interest on her debt more and more until it became impossible for her to ever pay him back.
Bruh, so
There
what's the
simply
plan?
wasn't any way that she could keep up with the constantly spiking increase to the debt. So in addition to making her work even more, the gang started taking their frustrations out on her as well. They began to hit her and strike her repeatedly very often. She would often be so bruised and battered that she couldn't even work. Despite this, the group would continue to get high and subject her to even more beatings. They enjoyed themselves far too much while doing so, often laughing at her pain. This was when things got really out of hand, and you may be thinking it's already out of hand, and you would absolutely be right, but it's about to get much, much worse.
Oh no.
The group that tortured Fan consisted of Chan Man Lok, the leader, Leung Wai Lung, a subordinate gangster of his who is said to have been either 19 or 21, and Leung Xing Cho, age 26, another one of his underlings. But there was soon one new member to that group, a 14-year-old minor named Ah Fong. She,
14?
although she had been reported to be one of the girlfriends of one of his underlings, ended up being a victim of Chan himself as he groomed her more and more over time.
Wow.
This girl, though, despite being very young and obviously manipulated, was ice cold herself. She very much enjoyed helping the group to mistreat Fan. She would even giggle and laugh hysterically while doing so. She took the opportunity to get creative and would even come up with her own ways to brutalize the woman herself. She was always ready and willing to join in. The group, unsatisfied at the amount of money Fan was bringing in, continued to mistreat her more and more. They tied her up, punched her, and kicked her all over. They would force themselves on her repeatedly, as much as they wanted. They even forced her to eat excrement.
Oh my gosh.
They started hitting her with metal bars, hit her and stabbed her with kitchen utensils, smashed pieces of furniture over her, and even tied her up in a standing position to use her as a punching bag. It got to the point that, one day alone, she ended up getting kicked in the head about 50 times. It has been said that Fan even got pregnant around this time, but the mistreatment continued regardless. When she was wounded, barely able to even move, the group would rub spices into her open wounds. To further ensure that
Bro, we're only 8 minutes in. How do you genuinely do this to another human being, bro? That's disturbing. Like, it sounds made up, but it's not. That's the horrifying. It sounds made up. It sounds like a very tragic backstory of somebody. It is over-exaggerated for dramatic effect in a movie or something. But it's not. It's real. Like, how? How do you do that to someone else?
she would burn her legs with hot candle wax repeatedly and even melt plastic over her legs. She was then forced to consume even more urine and excrement.
How,
The group would
bro?
then force her to smile and say that she enjoyed all of these things. If she refused, they would just mistreat her even worse, getting even harsher with their punishments. All throughout this time, Fan's husband and kids wondered where she even went. They were left with nothing to do but worry about her and hope that she would come home.
Oh my
The group
gosh,
started
she was
getting
never
more
coming
and more
home, bro.
creative, utilizing anything they could find throughout the apartment that could possibly
She was never gonna
inflict
come
pain
home, bro.
that could be used as a weapon. They would set plastic straws on fire and press them against the bottom of her feet until they were covered in painful burns and blisters. They would then hit her in the feet with sticks and whatever else they could find. All throughout this, they would throw chili oil onto her wounds and dump oyster sauce onto her face.
Why?
They then made her drink the combination of oils afterwards. It was a game they played. If she didn't pretend to be happy, then they would beat her harder. They told her to smile while they burned her. It was a fun atmosphere, said Ah Fong. It got to the point where they started
What? How is that a fun atmosphere? Oh my, yo. Bro, this dude says so much in so little time. Was like, yo, listen, they burnt her in the feet, they made her drink pee and like excrement. They put hot sauce and stuff in her open wounds, and it was a fun. Yo, come on, like how? How is that a fun atmosphere? Yo, come on, bro.
urinating onto her face and sometimes even into her mouth. If she spat any of it out, she was severely punished.
Oh my
Ah Fong
gosh,
once
bro.
even defecated into a shoebox and forced Fan to eat it, which she thought was hilarious. The group started wrapping her in electrical wires and hanging her from a hook on the ceiling. They would then mistreat her in any way that they wanted, usually hitting her with iron bars and leave her there overnight.
Yo. I'm gonna be honest, bro. At this point, kill me. Take my life away. Like,
Stopped feeding her entirely. The bodily fluids they would subject her to became her only form of sustenance.
oh my
They
gosh,
continued to
bro.
pack her wounds with dirt, spices, salt, and really anything else they could find to make sure that she never felt any sort of relief. Needless to
So-
say, after seeing the shape she was in, potential clients started refusing her services, meaning that she was no longer pulling in any money for the group. Fan would lie on the floor, starving, drifting in and out of consciousness, while the group hung out and watched TV or played video games. She was broken, and playing with her wasn't so much fun after that, but we carried on anyway. There wasn't really anything else to do, said Ah Fong. Ah Fong would gladly participate in any of the horrible things the group did to Fong, enjoying it all the way, admittedly laughing at everything that happened to her. It was for fun. Details of what Ah Fong did herself have never been revealed, but it's undoubtedly a very long list, even by her own admission. One night, the group decided to go out for some drinks. To make sure that Fan couldn't escape, they did what they usually did. They tied her up and threw her onto the bathroom floor, locking the door behind them. This sort of mistreatment could only go on for so long. After about a month of this, on April 15th of 1999, Fan finally succumbed to her wounds and passed away, cold, alone. After a few days, the group came back to the apartment. Ah Fong stated that she had to use the restroom. When she went into the restroom, she found Fan deceased on the floor. The men began to discuss amongst themselves. They needed a way to get rid of the body, but they couldn't decide on which method would be best. They even argued about what likely caused her death, obliviously most of them believing that it was probably an overdose that did her in. Most experts agree, though, as you can assume, that it was more likely the actual injuries that led to her death. So, deciding to put a pin in it for now, they decided to go to the arcade and play some video games, all while Fan laid in the bathroom.
Yo, how do you just go play video games after that?
Went to sleep and did nothing about the problem. The next day, while completely high, Chan came to a conclusion. He gathered up his little posse and told them, now she must be destroyed. They put her into the bathtub and got to work with a handsaw.
Oh my
Once the body was
gosh.
divided up into more manageable portions, they cooked each piece to prevent further decay and to get rid of some of the smell, boiling the pieces on the stove. Chan woke up Ah Fong, who was sleeping, and waved a bag of guts in front of her. He told her to go put them into some hot water to stop them from smelling. Leong Xing Cho was in the middle of boiling the head himself and called Ah Fong over to come and look at it. She said that she was scared and didn't want to look, but he said, it's okay, just pretend you're watching TV. She decided to give it a peek and decided that, he was right, it looked like something out of a horror movie. Given that this had already taken 10 hours, the group started getting pretty hungry. How they could even get an appetite while all of this is going on is maybe one of the biggest mysteries about this case, if you ask me. While boiling Fan's head in a pot, stirring it ever so often, they decided to throw some noodles onto the adjacent burner. They used the same spoon to stir their soup as they did to stir the...
You disgusting animals, bro. Oh my gosh. Y'all are using the same pots, the same spoon, the same stove that y'all using to cook human body parts to make ramen noodles. Oh my, yo, these people are disgusting, bro. I'm not exaggerating when I say they should never see the light of day again.
By the time their meal was over, the head was now nothing but bone. They decided to take the skull and sew it into the head of one of their Hello Kitty plushies, a large mermaid one.
Yo,
This is obviously where the name of the case comes from. It's still unknown why they even decided to go through the trouble of doing this. Given how
You said bon
drug-fueled the
appetit?
whole
Hell
operation
no.
was, it's safe to say that if there even was a reason, it might not make a lot of sense now. For unknown reasons, they decided to keep some other bits as well, namely a tooth and some organs. However, they disposed of the rest in the apartment complex as garbage. Things were quiet for about a month. It seemed that they had gotten away with all that they had done.
Oh.
That all changed 1 month later in May. Ah Fong made her way out to a local police station. She told the police that she was being haunted by a ghost, oddly enough. She told the police that this particular ghost had been tied up in electrical wire and
Yo, in Japan, it is a well-believed thing in Japan that if someone dies in rage, in anger, in injustice, in Japan, that ghost will haunt you. 14-year-old girl is seeing ghosts. Like, come on, yo.
The police, though, given that this was simply a ghost story, didn't take her very seriously at all. They brushed it off, assuming that she was just having nightmares or being silly. This was, however, until Ah Fong told them that she had played a part in the murder of this particular
Oh my.
woman. This obviously changed things drastically. The police asked her for more details and eventually followed her out to where all the carnage took place, the apartment. This is where they discovered that her nightmares were very much indeed based in reality. Inside, she pointed them to the Hello Kitty mermaid doll, and inside they found the skull. The whole group was found, arrested, decided to testify against the other members of the group. She told the police that she was Chan Man Lok's girlfriend, but she was also very likely one of his prostitutes as well. When asked why they had done all of this, she simply said, "I have a feeling it was for fun." This case quickly became a spectacle all throughout Hong Kong. Most citizens had never heard of a case coming anywhere near this magnitude before. Being a pretty safe modern city, they couldn't imagine something so sinister going on so close by.
Yeah.
One element of this case that fascinated them was the terrifying juxtaposition of one of the most grisly crimes they'd ever heard of meeting with one of the cutest icons they could think of. The mixture of horror and innocence stood out to a good amount of people. The trial would go on to last for 6
Please tell me they get life in prison.
Ah Fong went on to testify in exchange for complete immunity. In order to placate Fan's ghost and finally get some peace, she spilled all the gritty details. Every single disgusting detail of every single disturbing thing that the group did. She said that this was in order to relieve her guilt and stop the haunting. During the trial, material evidence relating to the case was presented to the courtroom. This included the refrigerator where the body was kept, the pots used in the cooking, and the actual skull itself. It has been said that the stench radiated throughout the entire courtroom.
Ew, man.
Psychiatrists evaluated the 3 men, who went on to describe them to the courts as being completely remorseless. There was one massive roadblock to the case, though. Given the way that Fan's body ended up, there wasn't any clear, for sure reason to find out what actually had happened to her. They couldn't come up with a concrete cause of death, given the evidence that they had to go off of. It could have been from the abuse, or it could have actually been due to an overdose. As a result, the men weren't convicted of murder, but instead of manslaughter. The jury had come to believe they had indeed caused her death, but they couldn't agree on whether or not there was intent. They couldn't rule out that the men did.
What? Yo, come on. Yo, the justice system is fucked. You mean to tell me eyewitness, someone who partook in the crimes tells you, listen, we pooped in a bucket, we made the girl eat it, we pooped in a cup, or we peed in a cup, made the girl drink it, we cut her, we put stuff in her wounds, we did all these terrible things for weeks. For weeks. We beat her, we kicked her, we did all these terrible things. Oh, but the jury's like, you know what? That might have not killed her. I don't know. I don't think you guys were trying to kill her. Are you crazy? Yo, are you crazy?
But they also couldn't rule out that they didn't. There was simply no way to know for sure.
Oh my gosh, it's
Despite
gonna
all
piss
the
me
doubts
off.
and the charges being reduced to manslaughter, the court justice, Peter Nguyen, was having none of it. In December of 2000, he sentenced the 3 to life in prison.
Peter Nguyen! Yo, everybody, W's in the chat for Peter Nguyen, bro. My goat, bro.
Funny enough, though,
Thank
this
you.
sentence did come with the possibility of parole.
Huh?
It wouldn't be for 20 years, though.
Okay.
Never in Hong Kong in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and viciousness, he said. The public is entitled to protection from people such as you.
Facts.
While if this had taken place in mainland China, all 3 would have likely been executed pretty swiftly.
Facts.
Hong Kong did not have a death penalty. Fan's husband came out and spoke at the sentencing. It seems that he was satisfied with them getting life in prison. He did, though, end by saying, "But how can I ever forget?" Ah Fong was released, free of charges, into foster care. It's currently unknown where she is now or how she turned out. The lawyers of the 3 men tried to appeal the case in 2003, but they had no luck.
What's her
The
name?
sentence was upheld. Those 3 monsters weren't going anywhere.
Thank you.
In 2014, the courts finally handed Fan the only remaining evidence of her body over to her family, who had it cremated. The apartment building, located at 31 Granville Road, Tsim Sha Tsui, Hong Kong, where the murder took place, was eventually demolished entirely in September of 2012.
Thank you.
After several years, in 2016, it was rebuilt as a hotel that still
Oh, nah.
exists to this day.
Yo, don't ever stay at that hotel, bro. There's ghosts, there's
The
demons.
actual location where the murder took place is now, by some dark irony, a restaurant.
Yeah.
20 years came
I'm never
and
eating
went,
there.
and in 2020, it seems
Never.
that the trio never did get their parole.
There's an
as there
ugly
were
monkey,
news
bro.
out there of their
Stupid
release.
idiot.
That is, except for one of the men. The Yongxing Cho was actually released in April of 2014. It seems that his lawyer was able to appeal and convince the courts that there wasn't sufficient evidence against him.
Wow.
As you might assume, it wasn't too long before he was on the police's radar again. Just recently, in January of 2022, while he was working as a waiter, he groped the chest of a female minor, only 10. And even more recently, he was sentenced to 12 months in prison for that. So as of the writing of this video, he is back in prison. Time will tell if they end up seeing parole in the future.
Yo, some people
There
are
ended up being a
just
few movies
disgusting,
released throughout
dude.
the years that told the story of this case. One of them was called Human Pork Chop with, my god, have some tact, come on. Another was called There's a Secret in My Soup. This case even became well enough known overseas that it was featured in an episode of Bones, an American crime drama. To this very day,
What?
Fan Man-yi's memory is kept alive every year when citizens of Hong Kong celebrate her life on her birthday with a candlelight vigil in the center.
That's
of the city.
sweet. That is sweet. I'm glad they got the justice they deserve, but that last dude, how do you escape a deserving life penalty and the moment you get out, you go to a bar as you're working as a waiter and you grope a minor? How does that happen? Like, what? That was the most disturbing case I've ever heard of. And I've watched a lot of disturbing stuff. Bro, RIP to her. I mean, she's a soldier, bro. The fact that she was able to live through all of that for so long, I don't know. At that point, I would want them to take my life. Kara says I'm back ugly. You're not funny.